You've probably seen the story making the rounds in real estate, right? It's popping up everywhere, especially with all these headlines about massive lawsuits. And it's a really compelling story. New tech is finally here to save home buyers from paying those huge agent commissions. It sounds like a total game changer, but is it for real? Today, we're going to dig in and see if this big promise of savings is actually just a myth. And let's be honest, the pitch is super appealing. You've got companies telling buyers, hey, forget the old way. Just pay us a simple flat fee, you pocket the rest, and hey, maybe you can even use that extra cash to win a bidding war. I mean, on the surface, that sounds like a no-brainer, a clear win for you. But here's the catch. As neat as that story sounds, it's kind of built on a flawed premise. See, this whole idea, this entire sales pitch, it all hinges on one big assumption, that you, the buyer, were the one paying that commission in the first place. And that's exactly what we need to look at. Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to do one thing: follow the money. Let's take a closer look at who actually pays the agents in a typical home sale. Seriously, think about it for a second. When a buyer's agent gets that check at the closing table, where does that money physically come from? Are you, the buyer, writing a separate check for it? Is it tacked onto your loan? The answer might actually surprise you. Okay, so here's the fundamental truth of the traditional system. The one thing you really need to get: the seller pays the commission. Not sometimes, not usually, consistently. A buyer just does not show up at closing with an extra check to pay their agent's fee. Let me just walk you through how this really works. So, before a house is even listed, the seller and their agent agree on a total commission. Then, once the home is sold, that entire commission is paid straight out of the seller's profits from the sale. It's only after that that the money gets split between the two agents. The money trail starts and ends on the seller's side of the ledger. Now I know what you're thinking. Wait, what about that massive NAR settlement, the lawsuit that was all over the news? I know it's often talked about like it just blew up the whole system, but did it really change who pays? And here is the absolute crucial point. The settlement, yeah, it opened the door for more negotiation, but it did not flip the script on who pays. It doesn't force buyers to pay their own agents. And, really important here, it doesn't stop sellers from offering to pay the buyer's agent. And sellers still want to do that for a very simple reason. They want as many potential buyers as possible looking at their home. So if the seller is the one paying, what exactly is a buyer saving? Well, this gets us to the illusion of savings. Because, you can't really save money that you weren't on the hook for in the first place. This question is really the heart of the whole thing. Let's just play this out. Say a seller offers a 2.5% commission to whatever agent brings them a buyer. Now, what happens if you show up without an agent, or you have one who just charges you that flat fee? What happens to that 2.5%? Does the seller just, Venmo it to you? And the answer, maybe not surprisingly, is no. That money doesn't just magically slide over into your bank account. It was offered by the seller, and if a buyer's agent doesn't claim it, it usually just stays right with the seller. To get that money, you'd have to very specifically negotiate for it, and that's not automatic, and it's for sure not a guarantee. And this is the trap, right? In a traditional deal, the seller handles the commission. But in this new savings model, you often end up paying a new out-of-pocket fee, while the money the seller had already budgeted for a buyer's agent, well, that just goes right back into their pocket. So you haven't actually avoided a cost, you may have just added a new one for yourself. This really gets to the core of it. These new models aren't actually reducing the cost of buying a home, they are simply restructuring it. They're just changing who pays what and when. And believe me, those are two very, very different things. So if the basic money flow hasn't really changed, then what has? Because something is definitely different. It's just so important to separate the signal from all the noise. So here's what's actually new: visibility. The big change isn't who pays the commission, but how visible and talked about that commission has become. It's all just much more out in the open. Buyers are more aware, and new ways of talking about it are popping up. The real shift is about transparency, not a fundamental change in who's footing the bill. Okay, but you might be asking, why does any of this matter? It feels like we're splitting hairs. But this isn't just some technical detail. Believing the myth that you're saving money you are never actually paying can have some pretty serious real-world consequences for you.
For starters, you could end up paying a brand new out-of-pocket fee for services the seller would have otherwise covered. You might go into a bidding war thinking you've got all this extra cash to play with when you really don't. And ultimately, you risk walking into one of the biggest financial decisions of your life without fully understanding how the money is actually moving around.
You know, there's a great quote that just nails this whole thing. It says, "The idea that buyers carry the burden is less a revelation than a reframing. It's not some hidden truth that's been uncovered. It's a new marketing story, plain and simple, designed to sell you a new kind of service."
So the next time you see an ad or hear a pitch from a company that promises to save you thousands by not paying a buyer's commission, you now know the very first and most important question you need to ask yourself. Wait a minute, was it ever my bill to pay in the first place? And understanding the answer to that is the real key to making a smart decision.